live on YouTube this evening, which we'll do also for the Dream Team session at 9 this evening. Nearly there, everybody. So do let us know how you're doing, where you are in your journey to Portugal. You can hear about journeys to Portugal that have, well, concluded in the sense that those folks we're talking to live are on here YouTube this evening, which we'll do also. So let us know where you are in your journey. Good evening, everybody on YouTube. We are live over there now. Let me welcome our guest, the special guest this evening for the webinar. Just landed special here on Expats Portugal. Thank you for being here. Grace in Cascais, first of all. Thank you, Grace, for being here. Hello. Boa noite. Tudo bem?
Boa noite.
Thank you for being here. How is Cascais this evening?
Right now, you can see there's some sun.
I do see that. How wonderful.
Like I said, it's been like this today. And then there was swimming.
Yeah. Okay. You were swimming, or you saw swimming in Cascais?
I could have been swimming.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if I didn't have my jacket.
Yes, it's best probably not to wear it. To run in with your jacket on at Cascais. As tempting as it is, of course. Thank you for being here tonight. Really appreciate you. And we'll find out more about you in just a moment. Sarah Davey recently arrived here in Portugal as well. Hold on a minute. Isn't she the woman from Spartan FX?
Yep, that's her.
Yes, that's it. Part of the dream team. You're right, Carlo. You've just kind of all been planting the seed and subliminally, the messaging.
It's there. And now you're here in Portugal. So thank you for being with us. We'll find out exactly where you are in a little while as we find out more about you and the decisions you've made to be over here. So thanks, Sarah, for joining us. And Henry Kent as well, who's very international this evening, chosen to be in Portugal a long term, but has recently been in Spain via Las Vegas. Is that right, Henry? Or are we not saying too much about Las Vegas?
No, indeed. Speaking today from Barcelona, but I've just secured my residencia, so yeah, I'll be back in Portugal soon.
So mentally, emotionally Portuguese and formerly British, I take it, and via Spain and Las Vegas. Amazing. So thank you very much for being here this evening. Let's, if we can, start with a little bit of an introduction. Then tell us a little bit about yourselves. Can we start with you, Grace, and a little bit of a pen portrait about you, where you came from? Would be a great start.
Where I came from, that's a long story. So, but most recently from Seattle, Washington.
Right.
My husband is actually in Paris tonight, boo-hoo, so he can't join us, so his apologies. But we came here via many things. And we are in Cascais because actually we had a friend of a friend who was giving an apartment to go to Lisbon. So we actually took her apartment in Cascais.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's been sort of a shorter journey than I think a lot of people take. We started thinking about it several years ago. Then we had family things intervene. We had to do some elder care. We had 2 elders pass away last year and had to get things on that tucked up. And then we started really putting our back into
your Portugal plan in motion. Well, I'm sorry to hear about that, the plot twists and difficulties that you faced, but and you're here now, which must be a big relief.
It is. I feel like I can breathe here freely.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. And so you and partner in Paris tonight, and you in Cascais, fantastically international, very European. So thank you for being with us. Let me start with you again with another question. Why Portugal? What made you choose Portugal in the first place, if I might ask you that?
Well, a few years ago, I was still working as a nurse, and a lot of people started talking at work about Portugal. And then we found out that we had a friend who had been in Ecuador who actually came to Portugal. He had previously been in Seattle, family friend. And then we started talking to him, and then he helped us realize that we knew a couple of other people who had already moved here. And then we came here last year for our 10th anniversary, and loved it. I mean, just blown away. And I think the fact that we had friends here actually sort of like pulled us in even farther.
That's wonderful, isn't it? I was talking to somebody, I think they're in Colorado, and they went, but for some reason they started talking to not their neighbor, but the next one along, who they'd never spoken to before. But it's like, hi neighbor, how are you? Well, what are you, how are you? What's your plans? Oh, we're actually moving to Portugal. Well, that's amazing. So are we. This is really random, but isn't it amazing how on this same sort of wavelength these things happen? People in far-flung places, and you wouldn't necessarily think this. Well, it just seems like a massive coincidence, or is it? Cue spooky music. So yes, quite amazing. A few signs there for you by the sound of it that you were. That's how I'm reading it anyway. You're making the right decisions.
Yeah, and then 2 years ago, I think that's absolutely right. 2 years ago, I went to a high school reunion and saw someone I hadn't seen since probably high school a while ago. And she said offhandedly that she and her husband and their kids were moving to Portugal. So that's what really started the engine 2 years ago. So yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? Excellent. Okay, fantastic. And maybe how one tunes into those sort of vibrations and energies from Grace a little bit later on. Thank you very much for that, for the time being. And your why Portugal. Sarah, can we have a little bit of a self-portrait of you and that big question, why Portugal for you? And not just because you sat through so many webinars that you couldn't not.
I come from the UK. I come from Durham, which is near really the Scottish border for people that don't know where that is originally. And then I've lived in London for about 15 years. I did a year abroad in North Carolina when I was at university. So I did a little bit of sort of moving away from home, but nothing like this before. And I don't know if it's a magic number, but 2 years ago, I started to come out to Portugal regularly with work. And I think the only way I can describe it is it just felt like home. It just had this feeling that I can't really describe. And I thought initially, everyone goes away on a trip or a holiday and thinks, oh yeah, I don't want to go home. But every time I came out, it was the same. So obviously the list of the pros and cons. And then in October last year, I came out for about 3 weeks. I rented an apartment in a really residential area just to see if I could actually live here. You do your washing, your cooking, go shopping to the supermarket and see if you could actually live here rather than normally I stay in a hotel, which is not really real life. And from there, I thought, yep, I can do this. And I started to apply for my visa and it all went very quickly. And here I am.
Amazing. And so that's for you why Portugal is because it felt like home, a home from home. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. And what a great idea. Realizing that hotel life isn't real life necessarily. I mean, for some people it is, lucky them, but for the rest of us, it's not normal life. And you decided to book a couple of weeks of normal life and see how that went, and obviously went very well. Thank you for the time being. Excellent, Sarah. Henry Kent advises people about the advantages of being here in Portugal. Was that the driver for you, Henry?
In some ways. A bit of backstory about myself. So I'm originally from Brighton on the south coast of England. And around 11 years ago, I moved to Ireland, Dublin, where I studied. I obtained my diploma under the Central Bank of Ireland in cross-border financial advice, and then decided I needed warmer weather. So I made the move to southern Spain, where we have our Spanish office, where I was based for 7 years. And then obviously my colleague Jason, who some people may have seen and his webinars on here, he made the move to Portugal and we've got an office there. So I started visiting quite regularly. And then, as you said, being part of the dream team and Expats Portugal, it was getting tougher and tougher to not be there. So I made the decision towards the back end of last year to make the move, and it all went pretty smoothly. And so now, as I was saying before, I've recently had my residencia meeting and that was approved. So in 90 days, I should get my card and I'll be settled in Portugal.
That's wonderful. So let's talk a bit more about that process. And I'm sure it's not just me, but Jerry and Astrid are thinking as well. So who else is going to be moving to Portugal soon? from the business directory, right? What help did you need? Because this is going to be really helpful to other people thinking about the move. The things that you needed. So we'll stay with you, Henry, for the time being. What help did you need? What professional help, and where did you find it?
First of all, immigration lawyer to help with the visa process. That was imperative, helping to gather all of the documents, make sure that it was all correct and prepared for the consulate meeting. And then obviously my Steph and Aimer meeting, that was worth its weight in gold.
You had the inspiration to move around the time where you could just claim to be a Brit in the EU? You had to go
No,
through
unfortunately.
as a third country individual.
Well, exactly. And this is what my partner, she's struggling with at the moment, because there's certain hoops to jump through with various visas, as everyone knows. So she's finding it a bit tougher than I did. But yeah, the first step for me was working with an immigration lawyer who works side by side with you to assist you and help you throughout that process. Without that, I wouldn't be where I am today. So.
Very good. Okay. And
Yeah.
and presumably from the wealth management point of view, that's all taken care of.
That's all taken care of, fortunately.
Very good.
Yeah.
In-house there.
But I
Anything
always-
else, moving and any of the other services that people might like to know about, or are you fairly sort of fleet of foot with the moving thing?
I'm quite lucky because I've got Jason there, who's helped me out quite a bit
Right.
with getting based in Portugal from a property aspect and getting settled from there. But no, sorry, going back to what I was going to say, what I say to all of my clients as well, who I help and assist with, the first step is understanding your visa options, how you're going to be able to stay within the country. That's what I've done. Second then would be, and what I'm currently moving into, is finding an accountant that I feel comfortable working with, who can assist on that front. And then third would be our services, the wealth management, financial advising, financial planning, making sure your assets are structured in the right way, but always have that understanding before, but implement on that first stage once you're in Portugal.
Very good. Yeah, thank you for that checklist. And an interesting order there for people who are still working, because there's a bit of a distinction, presumably, because you're still at work. You need that accountancy and wealth management connection.
Exactly.
Apps. I mean, I think it's a good idea to have an accountant anyway, whatever your status, but particularly for you as a working person, that's a very important priority. So for the time being, thanks. That's the sort of help you needed. What about you, Sarah? You would, I'm sure, agree with Henry there.
Oh, absolutely.
Right,
So I used EI, Gilda and her team from the Dream Team. And I agree with Henry, couldn't have done it without them. I think also as well, it is really stressful. You know, when I went to that BFS meeting with all the documents that I needed, you know, you just want it to be so successful. If I did it myself, I'd just be even more stressed about, have I done it correctly? Will I get the visa? And it just, yeah, it really does alleviate that. So I would definitely agree with Henry on that. You do need a visa agent, I think, rather than try and do it yourself, because it's just so much stress. And I think it just alleviates that. I haven't been to my AIMA appointment. That's on the 30th of August. So I'll have that to come to. But yeah, they were great. And I also used Win Insurance as part of the Dream Team, because you do need insurance as part of the list of the things that you need for visa and proof of that.
Right, so Nuno got the call on, and Nuno and team got the call on that one, and I obviously I know who you used for currency.
Yeah,
Well, I hope,
Steve's my dealer.
Yes, I hope it was Spartan FX. Anyway,
again, I say to a lot of people, you know, I'm more than capable of doing it myself. We have an online system, I can just go on, but I just call Steve up and he does it for me, because there are so many things that I've had to do, you know, especially moving. You know, I haven't brought as much stuff with me, so I didn't need a removal company, but there's still a lot of elements in the stress of sort of moving that it's just one element. I just pick up the phone, he does it, and I don't need to worry about it. I don't need to call the beneficiary and check the details. Steve does that for me. Again, it's just easy.
Yeah, and you didn't get a discount opening up, a staff discount opening an account with Spartan FX, because they're free anyway, aren't they?
Exactly.
Right, so there you go. Excellent stuff. Thank you very much, Sarah and Henry, for timing. Grace, can I ask you what sort of professional help did you need?
You know, in America, if you ask me if I need professional help, usually people are talking about mental health.
Yes, that's not what I meant.
So, yes, I do have a therapist, but they're not part of Expats Portugal. However, my husband, Charlie, and I had an initial consult with Gilda and her team, and we talked about a couple of things. And then what happened is my friend who we met at the high school reunion, started talking to me about what she did. She had somebody who she got insurance through up in Porto, because that's where they moved to. So I actually used her insurance agent up there. But at the time we were starting the process, we actually thought we also might approach a golden visa. And so we talked to Jason, we talked to Daniel, actually. Then it was all sort of jumbled. It all sort of happened very quickly. We decided the golden visa wasn't the right one. We went for the D7, and then we had Daniel and his team take a look at the lease that we were going to sign, because it actually kind of also happened very fast. We wanted a little backup on that. And then I also worked with Steve from Spartan FX. He was wonderful and very kind, because I'm not that savvy with financial anything really. And I'm trying to think.
Well, that's an interesting one, because I don't think you're alone with that. And when it came to having those calls, and presumably, I mean, if it was me, I'd be the same. You're thinking, I can't ask this. This sounds so basic. What was Steve like when you were asking those questions that he deals with every day?
I think he said something like, "Oh, you'd be surprised how many times a day I get asked that." So, there's no silly questions. Just, yes. I am here to assist you. I'm sure Sarah does the exact same thing. Like it just felt very much like that trust was built very fast, and that then I could just allow him to guide me.
Very good, excellent.
I found the same actually with EI, because I had been on many of the Dream Team shows. I listened to all the experts every week, and I thought that I would know more than I did, if that makes sense. I thought I'd understand it, but there's still things that I didn't, and sometimes I thought, is that a silly question to ask the visa agent? But again, it's just getting clarification, and just so that you're sure about things, to ask the questions, definitely.
Yeah. Very good. The only person who's not allowed to ask Gilda a silly question is me, as some people have seen on this screen from time to time. So thank you very much for that as well there, Sarah. Can I stay with you, Grace, for a moment and ask about the pains and pleasures of the move, the ups and downs, the things that were challenging and difficult, and the things that went swimmingly. What would you say about that?
As I've already mentioned, we kind of got lucky finding our apartment. However, we didn't realize at the time that the friend of the friend actually wore hearing aids. So when we arrived, there was a lot more shared wall noise than we would have anticipated based on what we were told about the apartment.
Oh, wow.
Luckily, I mean, there's a lot of noise, and one of our neighbors actually was up many nights when we first got here, like playing very loud music until 2, 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So luckily we have an amazing landlord, and she has had discussions with both the condo association for the building and also directly to the neighbor. And it seems to have resolved itself.
That's wonderful. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that, because that's pretty disruptive, isn't it? But you found the process of sharing that with the landlord, landlady, and the condominium association led you to a solution on that.
Yes, I mean, it took several days, and we definitely lost sleep, which was the hardest part, since we had just arrived and we were jet lagged and got very little sleep the first few days.
Yeah,
so, yeah, that was hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. Any other challenges that people might like to know about and learn from you?
Well, we were very lucky to have a visa appointment when we got our visas, and it was at Odivelos. We had met Shiva through this group, and he had actually been to Odivelos like a month and a half maybe before our appointment. So he was very kind and like talked us through kind of his experience, told us where it was. Like we went the day before and made sure we knew where it was, because it's actually in a mall next to the food court.
Not where you're expecting it.
Right, exactly. So if you're really bored, you could just pop out and have a snack.
Yes.
And then what else? So Odivelos turned our cards around in, I think it was 7 or 8 business days.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it?
But it was shocking, actually, that it came that fast. We were shocked. Didn't believe that it had arrived already. And the funny thing is, my understanding is that office is all still, they're not using the computer system. So they've avoided a lot of the crashing and other things that have been going on. And the woman who took our photos and everything, because we had to show up with our own photos, she got her glue stick out and glued on the back of the photo and stuck it on the paper. And then she took out her ruler. I'm like, oh, we're doing arts and crafts. And she pulled off the receipt of the thing and handed it to us. It was so wonderful in a way then to realize that actually made it go very fast to come to us.
The old school technology was just spot on. You did get lost in a new technology implementation.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Like, that's wonderful. And I heard in there the power of the community. So you learned from somebody else from their experience that they've been through, and you could talk to them on the community forum at Expats Portugal as well.
Yes.
Fantastic. Anything else that you think people should know about ups and downs?
We recently applied for our SNS, the Utente number. Yep. We got that back in 3 days, but we also have applied for our NIS, our NISS, our Social Security number, and we keep getting repeated emails. So this is where we're going to need help. We keep getting repeated emails back saying, oh, well, that name doesn't match this. And my understanding is you can only do it online. So this is a question going forward.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, well, that's how we can help you tonight, because I was going to ask about that.
That would be great. Yes.
Yeah, but people, I think, want to know, you know, if it's a lucky rabbit's foot or whatever it is you've done to have so much good luck in the process. I'm glad to hear it.
I don't know. We've been very lucky.
Wonderful. Well, I'm so delighted to hear that. That's fantastic. And thank you for the time being then, because we're going to be looking into the crystal ball and looking at, you know, the future in Portugal for all three of you, and what other help you'd like from this community. Can I ask you too, Henry, then, ups and downs? You said a little bit about with your partner having some challenges. Any other things that are proving to be a bit difficult?
Similar to Grace with the social security number, I came across them same issues. I kept getting an email back saying incorrect information. And I think it took me the 4th or 5th try, just 2 days before my meeting. It was approved. And I just kept going with the same information. And then they came back and said, you've been approved. And they gave it to me before the meeting. But it took me 5 or 6 times for it to accept the information that I was putting in. So I don't know why that was. I can't give any help on that, but it managed to go through with the information that.
But the power of persistence might be
exactly. I think that's what it was. Yeah.
All
right. So you just
that was
Henry. Sorry. Can I ask? You filled out the form online over and over and over again.
Over and over again. They kept emailing me saying it wasn't approved, so I'd done it again, and then kept going back, and then finally it was approved.
Okay.
That's good to know, right, Grace?
Persistence.
Give it another go. Excellent. Thank you, Henry. On that, anything else? Anything else? The pleasure and the pain of moving to Portugal, the ups and downs?
Location. I'm not decided on where I'd like to settle just yet. So I've currently rented a place in Lisbon because of the city. I love it there. But I've obviously got my colleague Jason in the Algarve and the office of Holborn Assets down there, and they're trying to convince me to come down. So I'm going to spend a bit of time down there and then make a decision on where I would like to settle. But everywhere I've been so far, I've loved. That
is a problem. That is one of the Portuguese paradoxes. Is every next place you go to, you want to live there. So
exactly.
I don't know if we can help with that. Sarah, what about you? The ups and downs of moving. What have you found particularly challenging? What's been easy?
One of the things I didn't realise was that my visa actually starts on the 1st of July. And from that date, I can only leave Portugal once to the UK within 120 days. Now, for some people, that might not be a problem. You might not want to go back home or visit or whatever. And I hadn't really given that a thought, to be honest, which is fine. But then I'm thinking, at least I've got one in case of any emergencies and I need to fly home for family. So that's something to bear in mind if you had anything planned or needed to go back for anything. I didn't know that. So it was a bit of a sort of surprise. As I said, it's not a problem. But as I said, when you're not expecting it, and then someone tells you can't do something, then you want to do something. So that was the only thing that was a bit more of a surprise from the process, as it's only a small thing. Ups and downs. Everybody's really friendly. I've moved on my own, and the other night I've just arrived. I've literally been here a week, I went out for dinner. I'm living basically between Lisbon and Cascais, a bit similar to Henry. I'm not sure if this is the area I want to be in, but it gives me a chance to explore different areas. I went out for dinner. I got chatting to a lovely American couple. They'd been here a few months on another table. Then three other people. One was a Dutch guy that's been here for many years. And two South African brothers. Everybody, and we're all chatting together. And if you're sat on your own, people do sort of sometimes invite you to join them for dinner, and it's just been lovely.
That's amazing, isn't it? And yeah, just making friends very quickly and people very open. I thought we're talking about the Portuguese population who are renowned, of course, for being very friendly, but you're talking about other expats being very open and friendly.
Yeah, I think it's probably the accent as well. People sort of pick up on different accents and they're like, oh, where are you from? And, a little bit more, obviously, because they're an expat themselves. But obviously I'm here, like Henry, with work. I'm working from here, been to a few events and met Portuguese people. And as soon as I said I've just arrived, straight away, oh, if you need anything, give us a call. If you need any help, if you need recommendations. So people are very friendly and helpful.
Oh, lovely. That's fantastic to hear. And thanks for the feedback over on YouTube. The way this works is we will stop the transmission over on YouTube in about 10 minutes so that we can hear what the backstories, the just landed stories from Grace, from Sarah and Henry tonight. And then over here on Zoom for the Expats Portugal members, there'll be a lock-in, which I explained earlier on. It sounds really bad, but it's just, we're closing the door behind us. No drink is involved, as is involved in a British or Irish lock-in, but the convivial atmosphere where you'll be able to chat and ask questions. And we'll get to all the questions that have been asked in the chat in that session, about half an hour. In about 10 minutes time, we'll have half an hour of questions over here for the Expats Portugal members. And thanks for joining us over on YouTube, where we'll be for the Dream Team session in about an hour's time as well. The link for that for the Expats Portugal members will be in the chat soon. So I was going to ask the question about why you chose your final location. And it sounds like it hasn't been especially purposeful, and it's still work in progress. It was, a nice coincidence or happenstance with that. And that's the thing that we can return to, what it is you might be looking for. But before we go there, I'd like to ask you, in terms of the ups, as well as talking about a few of the downs and the challenging moments, how did you celebrate being in Portugal? The moment where you think, oh, I've got that behind me now. I'm really here. And some people are obviously going to go for a cafe and nata moment. It might be something else. What was it for you, Grace? How did you celebrate and really, know that you were here finally?
Well, Charlie and I, after we had our IMA appointment, went on a little road trip, and we went up sort of the Silver Coast a little bit, and actually went up to Porto, visited my friend Denise and her husband, and then also saw Hank and Connie up there. And then kind of worked our way back down. When we got back, because we have a wonderful doorman who doesn't speak a lick of English, but we had somehow roughly explained to him that we had these cards coming. He had actually signed for our residence cards and put them in our mailbox because he has a long-standing relationship with the CTT delivery guy. So we got home at the end of our road trip, and I went down to collect the mail, and I picked up a few things, and I came upstairs and I said, Charlie, I think there might be something of interest here. And so we sat down on the couch and I opened mine, and I was like, so he's like, I'm going to get a beer and some wine.
That's a happy dance. Yes.
So we picked back a toast and said, and it took us a few days to actually realize that we had our cards. We were like, look, we're residents.
Isn't that lovely?
In fact, we called Hank and Connie in the middle of the night. It was, I don't know, it was probably 11 or midnight. For me, that's middle of the night. And I said, are you still up? And they're like, yes. And we were like, oh my God.
Fantastic. So very memorable. To look back on there, and how lovely that your doorman there, your receptionist, was able to do that for you as well.
Yes, he's been very kind, even though I use my Deeple a lot with him. He's very kind.
What a lovely moment. Thank you for sharing that with us. Sarah, what about you? A rooftop cocktail in Lisbon?
Not just yet, to be honest, but that is the plan. It's been quite full on. I think that's one thing. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, but I think that's the problem is sort of getting here. I'm so excited to be here, excited to meet people, been to a couple of work things in the evening, and I think it's just too much. I think I've got to remember that I actually live here now. rather than when I come for a week, you try and fit everything, like, you know, work trip or holiday, you try and fit everything into like that 1 week.
Yes.
Now I live here, you don't have to run at that sort of pace.
No, I can understand that. And that's a pretty good note to self, isn't it? To get off the treadmill and to make a moment to celebrate and go
And
off.
also just the adjustment of sort of they eat later here. Us in the UK, we eat sort of earlier for dinner. Now it's sort of people are eating kind of 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. It's sort of a little bit of adjustment there as well.
I'm sure the Portuguese laugh and say, why do British people eat when children eat? But anyway, it's after school. But anyway, looking forward to that moment, I'm sure then, Sarah. And yeah, definitely take care of yourself with that. You know, I can understand the habit might be because you've been in, you need to get stuff done. But you, like you say, you live here now and you can afford to have a breather.
I think it's just because everybody's, as I said, is so helpful and nice. You get, you know, you meet someone or, you know, and you do get invitations, you know, come around, do this, do that. So it's just sort of pacing yourself, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember to do that. Long may that continue with the invitations. Thanks, Sarah. What about you, Henry? Went to Las Vegas to celebrate.
No, we went to visit a very nice place in Comporta. Is that how it's pronounced?
George Clooney country. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and we went and visited a nice little beach bar, had some food, had a bottle of wine, and just celebrated being settled and allowed to be in the country, really.
Excellent. Okay, well, final question then for the three of you. Thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate you sharing this information with us. It's really helpful to other people who are coming in the same direction. And it's the kind of crystal ball moment. And to make it sound like it's not a job interview, like where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And I'll roll it up with with this other matter of finding the right place to live, because I get the sense with all of you, you're not in your forever homes yet. So that process, where do you think you'd like to be? What are the markers for that? So the future for you, Grace, if I may sort of, put you on the spot a little bit with that, how's that looking for you?
Unclear. However, I will echo what Sarah and Henry have said, and that is, this is a good landing place.
Yeah.
It's very comfortable. There's a lot of English spoken here, although that can also be a hindrance as well, because I walk in somewhere with all the intentions to use all my new Portuguese words, and then I just get nervous, and then somebody speaks English to me, and I'm like, oh.
Yes.
So that said, Charlie and I have actually spent some time talking with Jerry and Lucy quite a bit, because eventually we think we might want to live a little bit more outside of a city, not too far, but just somewhere where we're not sharing walls with someone, and but still close enough.
Yeah.
Plus, Charlie flies a lot, and he's going to continue working on and off for the next few years, probably. So we need to be within like an hour and a half of an airport. So that's Lisbon, draw a circle, or Porto, draw a circle, probably.
Okay, so very much work in progress. Part of this question is also how can this community help you? How can Expats Portugal help you in that? So you've got your radius around where you want to be around the airport, basically. Anything else we can do for you?
Well,
for the future?
Like I said, Jerry and Lucy both have been amazingly kind with their time in sort of telling us what their experience has been moving from one place to the other, and where they live now, which is, I don't know, 20 or 25 minutes outside of Tomar. I don't know, to be honest. I feel like I'm
fair enough.
We've got our residence cards. We're just trying to enjoy a little bit before we kind of start putting all the lists together and doing all that stuff. So
totally understand that. Yes, thank you very much for that. And we'll have a few more questions in the lock-in session in just a moment. But for the time being, thanks, Grace, so much for that. Sarah, sounds like you're following the kind of base camp idea that we've talked about from time to time. Get somewhere that's good enough, and then think about the future thereafter. Is that the game plan for you? And how can we help?
Yeah, absolutely. similar, need to sort of do a bit more research into their areas. I mean, I've come in because I want to live here personally, but obviously I'm lucky that I can still do my work from out here. And a lot of the meetings and stuff happen around Lisbon. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to base myself around this area in the first place. It feels, as I said, it feels like home. Will I stay forever? I'll see how I get on. The plan is I do want to learn Portuguese, because if you want to stay, I think it's 5 years, you'll need to take a language test. So if I do want to stay, I don't want to find that I've not started to learn the language and then it's a struggle. So it puts me in a good position to do that, I think, in the future. I think because even though I'm here, I think in the next, well, sort of 12 to, probably 2 years, I'll still need help from really the dream team and everybody, because the things like that, now I'm here, it's like, well, what about a dentist, what about a doctor, things like that you need to look into. I don't have a car at the moment, but maybe when I move to somewhere else, will I need a car?
Yeah,
I'm not sure. Then as I said, this is not my forever home. So will I look for another rental after this? Then eventually will I buy a property? So, through that process, and then obviously tax as well. I've spoken to a lawyer about it, but I need to do more about that as well. So it's really going to be ongoing.
Yes.
It just depends on, I don't even know what that looks like, but it's just.
Fair enough. Yeah. So different challenges and not such urgent challenges as obviously you have with the time limits of moving, but needs for the future there. Thank you for articulating those. Finally then, and thanks for the time being, Sarah. What about you, Henry? Base camp, and then you'll figure it out later on. You've got people asking you to go down and be with them in the Algarve. You love Lisbon. How's that looking?
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to getting down there, seeing what that's like, getting settled, or spending some time there, not getting settled, but spending some time there, and see if I could actually see myself being based there full time. But I echo a lot of what Sarah's stated. I've chose Lisbon as my initial base because of clients, work, being around this area. I do feel I miss having the beach coming from Spain. I miss having a beach very close to the doorstep. So that's been a bit of a struggle for me, being based in Graça in Lisbon.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's going to be my base. Who knows what the future holds and where I'll be, but at the moment it's my base and all options are open. So we'll see.
That sounds exciting, doesn't it? That's wonderful. And it sounds
What's
like
interesting is that obviously Grace is Cascais. I'm not too far from that. We have beaches on our doorstep, the other side of Lisbon. So
moving a bit further down could be suited. Yeah.
Henry, help already from
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. All right. Well, let's leave it there for the time being, because we're going to have a chat now.